Welcome to Total Nileation, your existential halftime. I am your host, Nile Segay, aka Optimus Prime. Welcome to the treehouse. Pull up a cushion. I don't know why I do that. I like it. I've never had a treehouse, and so that's going to be the recurring theme until ADHD makes me forget it, which is probably in 10, 9, I've already forgotten. In this episode, I will be covering my top 10 favorite good news stories of the week. I'll tell you all about a new thing I am doing, and I'm going to date myself with a story. And I will also recommend a book for this episode. For this episode, sort of like informal book club. But the twist is this is a book I've never read, but I'm still going to recommend it. And also, invariably, I will be talking some shit. How are you? How you been? You're probably looking well. I got to figure out a way to. I hope you're well. I don't have to overthink this. I hope you're well. This has been a pretty interesting week for me. Started off, I'm gonna be honest, in a bit of an existential free fall. I was having like a bit of trouble in terms of like, I don't know, like career life direction, which is gonna happen. At least it's going to happen to me when you are self-employed and you have ADHD. There's a lot of, it's hard when the dog's pulling its own leash. Does that make sense? Do you say what I'm saying? Or maybe I'm the only one this happens to. Maybe everyone else is just a well-oiled ADHD machine living their best life. But anyways, this is the point. This is why I'm bringing this up. I think I came up with a fix. This is day 3 of the fix. It's definitely made a difference in terms of life quality, in terms of direction, and getting stuff done. But as I am wont to do, I'm always that guy. I'm like, let's give it at least a week. Give me a decent sample size before I start talking about like, this is it, guys, this is it. Y'all have to do it. So if it lasts until next episode, which is going to be, oh shit, that's going to be 2 weeks. I will definitely mention it. And hopefully, hopefully I will have reason to mention it. And B, hopefully it's going to be something that can help you as well. Maybe you're already doing it. Maybe you are more clever than I am. And then the other thing, in case you're sensing a tone shift, I was hanging out with a friend of mine, Samantha Wan, great director, actor, serial killer. She's not. But I can say that because I'm almost sure she doesn't listen to the podcast. Anyways, but I was like, I'm working on the podcast. I like where it's at, but I don't love where it's at. It's just missing a few things. And she's a director, and I'm like, what can you do to help me? Because what I'll do is I'll start doing the podcast thingy, and then I start going into this very performative headspace. And she was like, what you can do is, her first pitch was have my primary partner sit in the room and I just tell the podcast to her. And I was like, I don't think she's going to be doing that. I don't think that train's coming. So then the other option that her director mind suggested was just say it like you're talking to her. And so that's what we're doing in case you're like, now feels way too familiar, this episode, and I do not care for it. That is the new direction of the podcast, so make peace with it. But listen, enough jibba jabba. Let's get to the top 10, the top 10 favorite good news stories from our home office in Finger, Manitoba. Number 10, this week, France eliminated a rule that stated French lawmakers had to stand up to vote in the National Assembly, aka Assemblée Nationale, which was literally impossible to do for Député Sébastien Pétavy, who is in a wheelchair. French officials said they would have changed the rules sooner, but they were having troubles finding the votes because députés without disabilities don't like to stand for anything. Wow. Listen, I'm going to be real. I don't know. I'm coming in hot for the French on this one. I'm not sure why, but it's not going to last forever. So just, if you're French, just, it's fine. When reached for comment on the groundbreaking story, Député Pétavy said something in French that most of you probably wouldn't understand. French officials were glad that they'd made progress, but many were concerned that they'd lost the only form of cardio they had besides bringing a cigarette to their mouths and sighing in despair. What is my problem? What is my problem? I don't know. I was in a weird space when I wrote this part. This brings me back to, I can't remember if it was last episode or before last episode. This is another illustration of how France, and I bet most European countries, are like sneakily progressive and super primitive at the same time, right? Because France just a few weeks ago, I want to say, eliminated the clause. I mentioned it in the podcast. They eliminated the marital duty as a reason for divorce. Marital duty is like you have to put out, basically. This is what they had. This is what they've had for hundreds of years in their history. In 2025, they were like, maybe not. Maybe we should get rid of that, which blows my mind because that's just, that's crazy pants. That's insane. I don't even know. I'm just going to move on. And I think it went to the Supreme Court. It went to the Supreme Court. Anyways, okay. Maybe that's why I was so sassy. Maybe that's why I was coming in with so much heat. Because I think that just, there's a little part of my brain that's just like, I don't like it when people present as progressive, but then do shit like that. No, don't do that. Moving on, number 9. A new report from our World in Data, of course, link in the show notes, shows that the global annual yields for cereal have tripled over the past 60 years. Amazing! Cereal is the only real breakfast option, said the representative for the Hens Union, to which she added, please stop eating our embryos, you fucking weirdos. Like that? I'm pretty sure I nailed the voice of a chicken. But we do still have issues with sorghum and millet. The growth for those two was less than 50%, which is very important for sub-Saharan countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And it's a very big problem there because they heavily rely on that. I'm not going to go into the guts of it because honestly, I went into the guts of it and then I forgot. But now here's the thing. I would argue that if you combine this story with some of the other stories that I've covered, like the increased access to electricity in sub-Saharan Africa, I'm pretty optimistic about this one. I'm just feel like it's not great, but they will get there. I feel like the momentum is just, it's going. Also, let's not forget, this happened in the UK. The UK had this problem. They sorted it out. And again, if you doubt that, I'd like to point out that at the end of I hate this. I think it's the 18th century or the 19th century. Why do we do that thing? I'm sure there's like a real clever reason why we always have, the 1900s or the 20th century. Anyways, in the 1800s, that was a milk run to get to not an exciting point. Anyways, we were all very confident that we would have run out of food by now. And, as I've mentioned before, quoting Hannah Ritchie, who's the big old nerd who likes to calculate stuff, apparently if you were to take all of the calories that we produce every day as a planet, everyone would have enough for 5,000 calories a day. 5,000. Try eating 5,000 calories and get back to me. I feel like that's what bodybuilders eat. They have to eat regularly. We would all be jacked. What kind of weird world would that be? So I'm optimistic, if that makes any sense. Yes? Yeah. And now it's time for number 8, which is also another segment. The number 8 favorite good news story is also another segment newly called Good News That Nile Doesn't Quite Understand. Because this is, I think, the 3rd episode in a row where I get one of these stories where I'm like, I feel this is good news. I don't fully understand it. So now I'm gonna make it look like I'm doing it on purpose. That's pretty cool, right? Of course, my saying that takes away from the mystique, but you know, I'm not perfect. I'm not you. So last week, researchers at Beam Therapeutics in Cambridge were able to correct a disease causing mutation in a cell, in a gene with a single infusion carrying a treatment for said gene. This was done with 9 patients and potentially halted liver and lung damage of patients with a rare disorder. Amazing, said every alcoholic. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know how well these are landing. I feel like if it's just you listening, it's probably not landing well, so I'm just not gonna make a meal of it. The study involved fixing spelling errors involving 4 base sequences G, A, C, and T. Researchers said the results would have come sooner, but they needed a vowel for the triple word score. That one is awful, and I apologize, but focus on the good news. Researchers were also excited because this breakthrough, I fucked that one up. It was going to be a pretty good joke, actually. But now I feel like I can't do it. It was going to be like you know what, guys? We're just going to do it. I'm just going to do a reread. Pretend you didn't hear the last part. Researchers were also excited because with this breakthrough, they're now only 1 letter away from... I didn't say anything there. Literally, I said nothing. You wrote that joke. I couldn't come up with anything. I did everything. I went to like a Scrabble word finder to be like, oh, I wonder if I can rearrange these letters to come up with something dirty. And I wasn't. So I thought, what if I just beeped it and used the listeners? Listen, kids, I don't understand the specifics of this news story, as I'm sure you've guessed. I'm sure you've guessed by listening to most of the podcast that I don't understand the specifics of most stories. But I think this is another one of those sneaky, huge fucking bits of news. Not because of the news itself or the story itself or the advancement itself, but because of the ripple effect that it might have, right? Because if someone was able to do it with one disorder, I can't see how eventually it doesn't, a few other people doing research on different conditions don't try this rollout and be like, oh, wait, we can do it. Works for us too. Let's rearrange some letters. And again, I know you're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're correct. I don't know what I'm talking about. But here's what I do know. We always underestimate how much progress we're going to make in a certain window of time. So this makes me think that like whatever you think is going to come of this, just multiply that by 100 because that's basically what we do. Number 7, Armenia and Azerbaijan stopped fighting after 40 years. Earlier this month, Armenia and Azerbaijan agreed to terms to end almost 40 years of conflict. 40 years. Good for you. That is... I mean, not good for you for the 40 years. That is not like way to keep on keeping on. No, that's brutal. But good that you finally got around to ending it. I feel like there's some certain parts of the world that could take a page from that. Officials said they agreed to the text of a peace agreement. The two countries had been fighting since the 80s when a part of Azerbaijan broke away with the help of Armenia. And what's amazing about that is Vladimir Putin looked at that and 30 years later thought, hey, good idea. It's astounding. It's astounding how, yeah. We say, oh, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. It's only the demagogues who forget history. It's only every demagogue, every narcissistic leader is just like when you're watching an action movie, like a Bruce Lee film, and he just smokes 14 henchmen. And that 15th henchman is like, oh, no, I got it. That is every demagogue, every dictator is like, no. I know this hasn't worked for everyone else, but I'll be able to do it. And it's like, okay, sure. But But congrats to Azerbaijan and Armenia. I kind of got us a little away from that. And yeah, that is, woof. I gotta say, as a Canadian, ever since the U.S. started getting, I don't even know what the word is. Do you know what the word is? It puts all of these stories that were always, I did a joke about that. I'm also doing another podcast with the Beaverton. Feel free to listen to that. It's a fun, solid, really funny people where we talk about Canadian news. And I was talking about how like this whole story with us and the U.S. is like, no, that doesn't, Canadians were all just like, that doesn't happen to us. That happens to countries that we see on our TV screens. We're not a country you put on a TV screen. We're not, that's not us. And now it is us. And it's, puts these stories in a whole new light. It really, really fucks with your brain. So new empathy for everyone who's ever gone through shit like this. Number 6. Earlier this month, an inter-American court ordered Ecuador to protect 3 indigenous groups, the Tagari, the Taromenan, and the Ducacari, from oil operations and to leave said oil in the ground. In an unrelated story, tracts of land in nearby Peru were bought up by Daniel Plainview. 2 people might have gotten that joke, and maybe 1 person kind of smirked. It's from a movie, I think it was like 2007 movie, There Will Be Blood. Basically, Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Daniel Plainview, just a horrible person, buys up a land next to someone's oil field, and he just sends a pipe down and then takes all their oil. And then there's a really fun scene where he's yelling, "I drink your milkshake." The court ruled that Ecuador must respect the results of a national referendum in which the people of Ecuador voted to leave the region of Yasuni National Park alone. Reached for comment, a government official said simply, "Well, fuck." I'm just gonna say it. You're still doing oil. Like I was gonna say I get it, but I don't. I mean, read the scoreboard, man. This is, I don't know. This is like destroying a people so you can make pagers. Guys, it's 2025. Watch, read up on renewables. It's the beginning of the end for oil, my friends. Yeah. Anyways, number 5. Earlier this month, Bloomberg NEF, no relation to Bloomberg News Agency, I don't think, announced that they expected up to 700 gigawatts of new solar in 2025, with that increasing, of course, in 2026 and 2027. This would make solar panels the most popular panels, second only to NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me and The View. Listen, man, I'm trying. These are probably going to get better. It should also be noted that Bloomberg NEF has consistently predicted conservatively in the past. So I'm pretty sure we're going to overshoot this. Do I need to, if you've heard any episodes of this podcast before, you know how bullish I am on renewables. Like, do some research. It's all feeling pretty inevitable. I wish I could bet on this. No, wait, I can bet on this. Maybe I'm going to sell all my RSPs and just go into renewable energies. If someone is a financial person, that's a bad idea. Please, totalnihilation@gmail.com. Stop me from hurting myself. But if it's a great idea, please, totalnihilation@gmail.com. Help me to help myself. Number 4. Researchers in the UK announced this week that they will be conducting a trial of brain implant technology to cure people of severe addictions. Scientists are looking for volunteers who are okay with having electrodes planted in their brains. No way I'm putting that shit in my body, said the guy who smokes 4 packs a day with a vodka chaser. All kidding aside, I was thinking about that. It's not so much the technology, but it's like, it's the like, okay, but who's What are the rules? Who's going to have access to these implants and the controls of these implants? Do you know what I'm saying? You always have like, that's the thing that's so, capitalism. Because it's like, sure, great, you have an implant that's going to help me fight like severe addiction, which by the way would be huge if it works. The intervention is already being used widely for treatment of OCD, Parkinson's, and depressions, which like, I don't understand how that wasn't a breaking story. I feel like that's a cool sort of like, hey, we got a hardware solution to these awful problems. Studies have shown specifically that people with OCD reportedly only obsessing about one thing. Did the doctor clean their hands before putting things in my brain? All right, I snuck that joke in there because I saw it and I was like, okay, let's get this out of the way. But going back to my point, it's like if you could guarantee in perpetuity that these little implants, that's all they're going to do forever, sure. But capitalism, there's always going to be some weasel who's going to see it by the company because it's like, this is a great opportunity for product placement. And then all of a sudden you're just waking up to ads for Squarespace in your head running more frequently than your actual obsessive compulsive thoughts. Anyways, but I honestly think, all kidding aside and all cynicism aside, I just brought a downer moment to a good piece of news. Since that already hasn't happened for when they're treating OCDs, Parkinson's, and depressions, I doubt it's going to happen for this. So this could be a massive sea change for people who deal with substance abuse issues. Quick little, going to sneak in before we move on to item number 3. I'm starting a newsletter. It's going to be basically extra good news stories, little updates on myself, not huge updates on myself because I'm still figuring stuff out. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, and it's not going to be gross. That's the one thing I swear, it's never going to be gross because, you reach a certain age, you're like, there's so much grossness in the world, I don't want to be a part of it. So it's basically going to be updates on my podcast and extra good news stories that I'm going to slip in there. And send it every other week on the off weeks where there isn't a podcast. And also it's going to be that, but also it's kind of I would encourage you to sign up because it's a way to protect against enshittification of a platform. You're on one platform like Instagram or even podcasts or whatever, and then someone buys it up. And then all of a sudden they're doing stuff that you're like, oh great, I can't control this, but you can control email, so I can let you know if I find a new corner of the internet that isn't shitty. Anyways, I will leave the link to the sign up in the show notes. As well, you could go to nileation.com. There's a sign up thingy there. And yeah, hope you sign up. Hope you sign up. I'll try to make it worth your while. Number 3. Nerds at Atlantic Research Center at the University of Vigo and the Galicia Sur Health Research Institute developed a video game called Mind Guardian, which they believe can detect early signs of cognitive decline, such as not being able to speak in your podcast. The app is not available on iOS devices, which would be a concern if elderly people were able to tell which kind of device they had. The creators of the game emphasize that it should not be used as a diagnostic device, and despite this, Elon Musk has already replaced the entire US Health and Government Services Department with a QR code to this app and a link to Goop. They do in this article, I've linked it in the show notes, the article does link a bunch of things you can do to slow down degeneration, by the way, which is, regardless of your age, may as well get started because a lot of it's fun. Neuroscientists emphasize social engagement at the most in terms of like helping cognitive impairment or reducing cognitive impairment, along with movement, cardio, and problem solving. But you know what I noticed? You can combine all of these things and keep your mind young by hunting human prey. Right. Whatever. I'm gonna have a weird moment. You don't have weird moments? Come on. Why is there no Apple version of this? That feels kind of weird. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like there's so many nerds. Like I play Dungeons and Dragons, man, and like nerds will just spend their time creating software to help you create a campaign and play Dungeons and Dragons and just make it easy, and they'll do it for free. And I think for some reason though, no one wants to make an Apple version of this. Doesn't feel like a priority, which I'm like, yuck. But this is huge. I'm really happy for this, and I do want to take a second to give like a proper shout out to these people, because if you're like myself and you lost a parent who had either Alzheimer's or dementia, it's rough. It is rough. Because I realized like the way it was for my mom, you lose them twice, which is like, it sucks. It really sucks. Obviously, the sucks is just too weak a word, but it really sucks. You have the one part where you now have this person who is your parent but isn't. And then when they die, you got to go, oh, take that other L. So shout out to these researchers. Fantastic work. And I'm, again, with all of the research that's happening and all of the progress that's happening just across the board, I'm feeling optimistic. If not for me, then for the generation after me. So there you have it. Number 3. Oh, this one's a fucking big one. Earlier this month, the last one was pretty big too. Earlier this month, it was announced that researchers had completed trials of a drug called, why do they do this? Just name it. Super Drug 9. Lenacapavir. Fuck. Or just call it Lenaka. Anyways, it's a drug, like the smokers, a drug that prevented 100% of HIV infections in the patients who took it. That's disgusting. And also, where do they sell that? Said your angry conservative uncle who goes for long walks at various parks at night. The drug only needs to be injected twice a year to offer full protection. That's great, said the manufacturer that provides chlamydia and gonorrhea medication to men's clinics. Because there's going to be. There's already PrEP. And listen, I can tell you from experience, there's a lot of guys who are like, it's fine. We don't need condoms. I'm on PrEP. Okay. All kidding aside, though, you can read this article. The stats for the trial of this drug are bonkers. It's not kind of like, like sometimes you get a trial and it's promising and you're kind of like, oh, yeah, that has potential, you think? They're like 100%. I think the lowest number in one of the trials was, I'm going to say 96 or 99%. Again, you can read the article, but I saw that. And I'm like, I looked at that one trial and I'm like, I feel like someone probably forgot a dose, right? Something happened, because I don't understand why every other trial is 100% and then this one trial is like 96, but still 96? This is, I've mentioned this before. I chatted with the volunteer coordinator at the men's clinic where I volunteer. I think it is definitely the beginning of the end for HIV and AIDS, which is fucking good riddance to that shit. And that's amazing. That is fabulous. It's been horrible. Everything that happened, all the people we lost to it, but not bad that, what was our response time? Our response time was like 40 years to get it on its way out, which a lot of that was fucking homophobia. Probably could have shaved at least 15 years off of that if people weren't so busy focusing on some parts of the Bible and ignoring others. Moving on to our number one good news story of the week. This week, the World Happiness Report was released, with Finland topping the list of happiest countries for the 8th year in a row. Congrats to you. In a related story, Finland also topped the list of countries most likely to bribe studies for results. So banner week for them. 2 W's. Mexico and Costa Rica both made it into the top 10 for the first time, knocking out Switzerland and Australia, shocking everyone who prefers dingoes and being surrounded by poisonous vermin to beaches and amazing coffee. I know. Australia has beaches, all right? Listen, I was writing under a deadline. They're not all going to be perfect. A study also found that acts of benevolence and positive social connections give the strongest happiness boost. Hey, I kind of already do that, said your angry conservative uncle who goes for long walks at various parks at night. Come on, callback? Callback? That's, no. I'm not going to respect that. Put some respect on my name. Callbacks are solid. The report also found that we are happiest when we think we live in a caring community and this is the biggest part, people are generally kinder than most of us expect. I don't think that's bonkers. That is, it's this weird thing we do. It's the othering, and I don't mean that. It's the othering. Just like as soon as someone is outside of our circle, we just, because of our default dum-dum settings, we just assume that they are not as kind, they're not as moral, ethical, yada, 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 just generally good. And that's because we're watching and listening to the wrong kind of news. But not you. You're here watching and listening to the right kind of news. Good for you. Now another segment. This is a segment I literally just threw together like 10 minutes before recording the podcast. No, I didn't throw this entire podcast together 10 minutes before recording. You're such a dick. I like that one or two of you is probably like, wait, is this how he talks to his girlfriend? No. This is how she talks to me. This is a little segment because I was thinking about the researchers who had that breakthrough with the app game that helps to detect dementia. I hate that I couldn't find that word. It really, existentially, it was scary. But I thought to myself, you get all these little nerds, they're just nerds. And I don't mean that nerds in like a, pocket protector, Dungeons and Dragons. There's just, if you focus on one thing and if you really like get into it and you have to talk, the only people you can talk to are people who also do that thing, you're a nerd, right? You can nerd out about anything. But like, we don't celebrate the nerds who have done massive good. We celebrate billionaires who make their warehouse employees piss in a fucking bottle. So I'm going to start pushing back against that. And now it's another segment. Guys, how many new segments have been in this podcast? Yes, but here we go. A new segment called Nerds No One Cares About, but Who Probably Saved Your Life. The number one nerd, I guess number 1 and 2, are Karl Bosch and Fritz Haber. They are 2 German nerds that were born in the 1800s, like late 1800s, I think, something like that. Shit, I should have gotten the date. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know. I mean, if you need to know, you can probably Google it. They created the Fritz Haber process. Coincidence? No. This process allowed for large-scale synthesis of ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen, which allowed for mass production of fertilizer. How did this help you? This saved an estimated 2.3 billion people from dying of famine. I think I've touched on this before, possibly earlier in this podcast. Fuck, I hate ADHD. But there was that time in about, I think it's the 1800s, 1700s, we were convinced, everyone who knew stuff, all of the nerds from that era were convinced that we were going to run out of food and it was the beginning of the end for the human species. But they did not count on. What they didn't count on was 2 nerds, Karl Bosch and Fritz Haber. This summer. Shit, I couldn't do it. I really, you know what it was? I wanted it too badly. I wanted it to be really funny. And I'm going to finish the episode and I'm going to come up with the name for the action movie, which, by the way, let's do this. Let's educate people on nerds who had a huge global sea change impact for the better by repackaging their stories into action movies. Tell me you wouldn't go see that. Tell me you would. Listen, man, I am sick of 99% of what's on TV right now. All the streamers, I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. You know what I haven't seen? An action movie about two chemists from Germany. I'm going to write that bitch. We're doing this. So yeah, those were the stories for this week. I hope you like them. And I hope, I got to come back to this. I mentioned this before. I hope you're giving yourself a little bit of a news break, a little time out, maybe once a day. See what happens. Just take a time out from the news once a day, from all of the noise. I'm not even going to call it news. It's mostly noise. Because if it was news, it would be complete. This is just noise. And see how you feel. Take a little sort of like measure of where you're at before. You know, scale of 1 to 10. How freaked out am I? How happy am I? And then spend like a day, 2, 3, whatever you got, as long as you can go without the news. And then register how you're feeling. And you're really gonna, dude, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Because I had that thought the other day. Here's the thing. Okay, I'm just gonna go, and hopefully it'll make sense. When I was young, super gonna date myself. I remember there was one year where, I was coming home from school. I think this was grade 6, my second grade 6. It was so nice. I did it twice. Anyways, I was coming home for lunch, very excited, because I would come home for lunch, watch Transformers, jealous, eat a very unhealthy lunch that you don't have to know about, and then go home. Latchkey kids, my God. I ate ravioli out of the can. I loved it. I don't know what to tell you. I'll do it again. No, I won't, because I don't do meat anymore. But the point is, this was my thing. And one day in January, I come home and I'm really excited. Turn on the TV, no Transformers. Instead, there is the image of the space shuttle, I believe the Challenger, blowing up. And I'm like, whoa, that is crazy pants. That is brutal. So I watch this for half an hour, and then I go back to school. Go to recess, tell my friends about it. They're like, what? And then I don't think about it again until about 6 o'clock, when it is on the first block of the news. So I'm going to say, let's be generous. Let's say it takes up the whole A block, 15 minutes. So at this point, 45 minutes total. And then I don't think about it again until I don't think I watched, there used to be like a 10 o'clock, the national, but I don't think I watched that. But let's say I did. So it was probably on the national. It's another 15 minutes of exposure. And then at 11 o'clock, the news comes on, 15 minutes. So what is that? 30 minutes, 45 plus 30 is an hour and 15. So that out of my entire day, that was an hour and 15 of like, oh my God, right? And now we're at this place where it's 24/7. Like your nervous system is always, because they need to get your attention, it's always like this fight or flight response. I'm just saying the damage, the effect, the contrast. Like the Gen X kids had it worse and better in a lot of ways. Like as a group, I think we had it worse. But as an individual, I feel like we had it better. Because, even with all that, I still developed some anxiety that I worked through. But that's just because I was ambitious. All right, here, now we're going to do the book club. The book club, the Total Annihilation book club, where my first recommendation is going to be for a book that I actually have not read. It is called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I'm sure if you know me, I've already mentioned it before. So you can skip past this part, or you can just listen because maybe you like hearing stuff over and over again. But essentially what it is, from what I understand, I really should have at least read the wiki. Why would I read the wiki? It's a group of nurses who were working in a hospice home, and one of them were like, wait, why don't we basically just question all of the patients who are dying and ask them what their regrets are. And then we'll sort of put them into a top 5, hence top 5 regrets of the dying. And here for you now is the top 5 regrets of the dying. I'm not going to do a joke about this because Jesus Christ. Number 5, these aren't in order. They're just, they're in an order, but not a priority. Anyways, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish I'd let myself be happier. I'm just putting this out there because if you're like me, there's a few of those where you're like, yikes. What's weird is I know people who know, I've told this list before and they're like, right. And then they'll go right on just because it's like, it's muscle memory. You work your ass off because that's what you're supposed to do. Even though you intellectually, that's going to be a regret. The courage to be true to yourself, that's a doozy. Because it's, there's a reason that the classic big punishments, the scariest punishments were death and exile. Yeah? There's a reason that there's such a thing as solitary confinement in the worst prisons. Like they consider that the worst. You hate this? You hate Gen Pop? We're going to put you in a room. Like we are social animals. So I can see how that first one is a doozy, but it's something to look into for sure. So yeah, I hope you guys can consider that and maybe pick one, sort of break it down into chunks to make it easier to do. Guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to rate and review the podcast. This is really important. I am learning in my nascent podcasting career. Sign up to the newsletter. It's on my website, or you can, it'll be in the show notes, in the bio. No, you're not going to be listening to this on an Instagram post. But I'll also put it in my bios, Instagram, Blue Sky, all of that good stuff. Feel free to follow me on social media at Nile Seguin. I have 2 other podcasts I'm doing. Listen, if I have my way, I'm going to see how many podcasts I can be on because I fucking love doing this. I'm doing the Beaverton podcast, which is a super fun podcast where we poke fun at Canadian news and talk about it. A lot to work with there for some reason. And then next week, there's a shiny new episode of Comedians in Dungeons Getting Dragons, which is a podcast where I DM a bunch of really, really, really funny comedians who all have ADHD. And it is, listen, if you're looking for an unhinged existential chaser, you cannot do better than that podcast. I used to be like, oh, it's pretty good. I used to be, sort of meek about it. Nah, man, nah. This is, if you don't like that podcast, I don't understand you. Feel free to stop by my Buy Me a Coffee page. Throw me a little change. If you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to share, my email is totalnihilation@gmail.com. So that is it, guys. Remember, if you can't be a shining example, be a terrifying warning. Let's get it on 3. 1, 2, 3.